What's up, War Report family? We are back with another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. Joining me, as he does weekly or bi-weekly, is my good friend JD Pickell over at On3 Sports. JD, how's your week going, man?
It's good, man. I don't know if it's as good as the folks in the Auburns is after that Deuce Knight commitment. I know vibes have been kind of up and
down,
or up and down, touch and go. But no, man, I'm doing well, and it's a good time to be talking some college football.
Well, speaking of Deuce Knight, let's jump right in here. Hugh Freezes lands a massive midweek commitment from Duce Knight, top 30 overall player. He's the fifth quarterback in the 2025 class. That moves him up to Auburn up to number 4 in the On3 recruiting rankings. I'm beefing with y'all a little bit. Y'all always got them ranked. I need you to talk to the people over there doing the rankings. I think they should be 3, but I digress. But huge for Hugh Freezes. Can you talk a little bit about what this news means in terms of the kind of downslide of emotion that's been happening on the Plains here with a 2-3 start with 5 straight home games to start the season?
Yeah, and I think it's funny because there's so much about this year for Auburn. From what I could tell, that was about like trajectory, the future. Let's be able to go, win 8 games. We can get a top 5 class and, go land someone like a Deuce Knight. And so to be sitting here in a spot that you didn't expect to be and having only won 2 football games and to still land your quarterback of the future and to land him at a time where you've only won 2 games, I think it'd be different if Deuce Knight committed before the season and it's like, hey, I'm buying into what Auburn's going to be in 24 and beyond.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He committed right now where things aren't so great. And so to me, it just like anchors this recruiting class. I think it's only going to bolster them, obviously. Anytime you got a quarterback, you got someone who is going to be the front man for your class and kind of be what I would call the lead actor for the movie poster. So I think the timing of it is crucial for Auburn fans, and to have it at this point in the season can only stabilize vibes. Maybe not through the roof vibes just yet, given what's happened on the field, but it definitely sets a good course for the future.
Speaking of the course for the future, this is Peyton Thorne's last year. I think Hugh Freezes kind of signaled to the world that like he's not going to go back to Hank Brown unless he's breaking the emergency glass there, right?
Sure. Yeah, it feels that way. Yeah, it feels that way.
So in terms of your future, there was a lot of consternation, JD, about Hugh Freezes not going to the portal to get a QB this offseason. Mm-hmm. Where does this pickup of Duce Knight put Hugh Freezes in terms of that portal conversation again come December? Does Auburn have to go get a bridge to 2026 and they'll let Walker White and Duce Knight battle it out? Or is it possible we see a Dylan Raiola type situation where he's the starter for game 1? We don't see that often.
Yeah, I feel a couple of ways about this. I think we'll have a better gauge for how Hugh Freezes views Duce Knight and views Hank Brown based on what they do in the portal. If it's me personally, I understand the desire to roll with the Duce Knight and to have him out there and to have him play. I think there is such a thing as playing too early. And I think seeing Peyton Thorne, an experienced quarterback, struggle now for, call it a year and what are we now, 5 games into the season? Like I think that it should be pretty telling for us as if we're supporting Auburn here. I would love to see him. Maybe you don't redshirt him, but maybe you don't put all the pressure on him to be the guy right away. And also we'll see who's available in the portal market. Like if you told me there's someone of a Cam Ward's caliber that Auburn has a chance to go get for a year, okay, let's do that. Let's inject some life into the team. Let's inject some wins into this trajectory. And give Duce Knight a chance to, get his feet wet. Maybe he doesn't wash the whole year in redshirt, like I said, but I do think that letting him sit for a year and learn and acclimate to the system would ultimately serve him the best in the long run.
From a budgeting standpoint, it's crazy that we're talking about this right now, but from a budgeting standpoint, to get a Cam Ward, we know now after the fact that would have cost them well over $1 million in NIL. Sure. If you're Hugh Freezes, what are you telling the money people, man? Like, I still need another year. I need another quarterback to bridge this. And if you're Auburn, can Hugh Freezes go out and get another Peyton Thorne type quarterback, or does it have to be closer to a can't miss prospect like Cam Ward? Cam Ward is probably he's unreal in the pocket. You've been seeing these clips about how he's back there holding the ball, doing his taxes and making lunch, and then he'll throw the ball after like 3 seconds, completely unbothered. That type of player is going to cost you, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. And I think to the same degree now, you do get what you pay for a little bit here. You know,
Okay.
like there is something to be said for if you're going to go at that high price point, you make sure it is a Cam Ward caliber guy. Now, is a Cam Ward caliber guy available this portal cycle? You know, remains to be seen. But I do think this year, to me at least, seeing Peyton Thorne still go to spring practice, have last year as, you know, kind of a basis for the offense, and then to have the results that we have thus far through 5 games, I think I personally missed on the idea that you could have a quarterback be average and have good talent around him in Hugh Freezes' offense and be okay. I think to this point now we can sort of take what we've learned and say, okay, if you want to really maximize Hugh Freezes' offense, if you want to really be able to run this show how it's supposed to be run, you got to have a dude at quarterback. And the good news for Auburn fans is I think you do have a dude in Deuce Knight. But when it comes to 2025, is a true freshman Deuce Knight, you know, do you really want to throw him in there and ask him to be the dude from day one? Now, if he can do it, great. But if not, I would feel a lot more comfortable paying the big bucks, hurting the wallet. Maybe you're not adding as many pieces around him. That's why you've recruited well to this point, to be able to support him. But I would go after the portal quarterback that is creme de la creme, tier 1 kind of guy to try and, again, kind of inject some momentum into the Hugh Freeze era on the field.
I think from what we've seen from Peyton Thorne so far this year, JD, against Oklahoma, despite the untimely interception, he was 6 of 7 on passes of 20 or more yards down the field. Auburn is near the top of the country in explosive plays with Peyton Thorne at quarterback. I think the pertinent question to me is, whoever you start in 2025, do they have a higher floor than Peyton Thorne has currently? Because we know how good it can get when Peyton's on, but we also know how bad it can get when he's not. And I think that's going to be the key question for Hugh Freeze. How do I put somebody in there that raises the floor and helps me keep this situation moving forward? Look, Auburn still has some maybe big flips left on the board. And I'm going to ask you for any intel here, JD, but is it possible that Hugh Freeze ends up with the number 2 class in the 2025 recruiting cycle?
I think it's very possible. And I want to be careful with what I say because I don't have intel. And so people are going to see this logo behind me and know that I work for a company that, you know, is definitely in the recruiting game. They're like, oh, this guy knows something.
Hayes Fawcett is constantly making and ruining people's days, by the way.
Dialed in. Like, I got notifications on like everybody else. I see the Hayes Fawcett pop up. I'm like, oh, Deuce Knight flip. Cool. Like, let me go check that out. But I don't have any intel. I know obviously Naeem Offord is a guy that you hear about a lot from you know, Auburn pushing to flip him. I think I would feel a lot more confident answering yes to that question if we saw some momentum on the field. Like, I know this is going to get me dunked on, you know, saying this and on social media, but saying, like, let's just say Auburn plays Georgia close. Let's say Auburn beats Missouri. Let's say Auburn finds a way to get to 7 wins this year and they win a bowl game. A lot of ifs. I totally get that. But if they get some momentum, I think that could maybe go a long way, as we probably have talked about before the season, to get him to, you know, move up those rankings. But to some degree, I think you are maybe playing with house money a little bit because you got your quarterback, you got a top 5 class. The way that it feels to me, I don't have intel, but the way that it feels to me is when you land your quarterback the way that they did, that's going to stabilize a lot of guys that were maybe thinking about not sticking. I don't know who was or wasn't, but I have a hard time believing you land your quarterback, that kind of calms everybody down. So we'll see what happens here. Again, I don't have intel, but if they can find something to pitch from the field on the recruiting trail, maybe then they finish within that top 3.
Peyton Thorne said after last week's games, look, I'm sick of the silver linings. I think you make a great point about the on-field results still weighing in here in terms of other kids. Now, Duce Knight was able to overcome that particular hurdle to still commit to the Auburn Tigers. You know, there's part of me that thinks he was maybe just waiting to do it after a win, and then the win didn't come. But he's committed. He's committed in, and Hugh Freeze still has some tricks left up his sleeve. Clearly, the messaging is still working. Please come. I'm building something. Look at the guys, because if you're telling Deuce, look at who you're going to have to throw to. It's not like the receivers are having no success despite the struggles at quarterback. It's turnovers that have killed them. So if you're Deuce, you're thinking, well, I'm not going to do that, so we should be just fine.
For sure.
But moving the needle here to the Georgia game coming up. What's a reasonable expectation for Auburn and Athens? They haven't won there since 2005. I think maybe the worst case scenario, you're playing a pissed off Georgia after, again, honestly, I thought they were going to win it. That was my national championship.
Me too. Same.
Oh, man.
Same.
You know, amazing comeback. Carson Beck has probably the worst first half we've seen him play ever, but comes back and has one of the best halves of football after that we've ever seen play ever. What do you think about this game here? Does Auburn's defense have the ability to maybe duplicate some of that success that Alabama had against Carson Beck in the first half of that game last week?
I think it's on the table. I think something like that is definitely in the bag of scenarios. To me, the wildest part about this is Auburn being 24.5-point dogs. And I get Auburn hasn't been great. I understand that, but like it's a very big spread, man. I think they're just they're daring you to take Georgia minus that 24.5. And I had Georgia as my preseason national champion pick. I think Georgia has a case still to be the best team in college football, even after the loss to Alabama. I mean, from what they did in that second half and who Kirby Smart is, I think that the letdown spot is a little bit intriguing. Now, there's a letdown spot for both teams because of the way the Oklahoma game went and because of the Alabama game for Georgia. 24.5 is very rich. I would be surprised if it got that lopsided. I will not pick Auburn to win the football game, but I do think you look at last year too, with the way that these Auburn teams have proven they're going to play under Hugh Freezes in big games. Doesn't matter if they played New Mexico the week before, New Mexico State, excuse me. They're going to get up for the Georgia game, for the Auburn game, and also let's just say this: Hugh Freezes has proven multiple times why you hired him and the way they were able to be competitive in those games. Like the Hugh Freeze special, as I call it, the way they were able to keep it close with Georgia, with Peyton Thorne throwing for less than 100 yards. Same thing with Bama, had less than 100 yards passing from Peyton Thorne. So it's a long-winded way to say I think there's more to this than what meets the eye. I think Georgia wins, and I don't think it's 24.5, but maybe somewhere in the 2-touchdown range.
But I can't let you off the hook, JD. I need a score prediction.
I love it.
I need you on the record here.
I'll take.
What's the end score and why?
I got Georgia 34-20.
34-20.
I think that we see a little mojo from Auburn. I think you see again why Hugh Freeze is the guy calling the offense. I still think there's probably a mistake out there at the quarterback position that ends up, kind of being the separation point for Georgia, and they just end up pulling away. But I do think if Georgia has a letdown spot here, things could be very interesting, especially in that first half.
Where do you see the letdown coming, though? Is it the passing game for Georgia? Does Auburn have a chance to stuff the run here to make them a little bit one-dimensional? They've held every Power 5 opponent they played so far this year to under 350 yards of total offense.
Yeah,
which is incredible. Do they have a chance maybe to hold them to under 350 yards of total offense? That's a tall task.
I'd actually go back to the offensive side of the football for Auburn, and it sounds funny, but like, the perimeter run game, for whatever reason, against Georgia has been an issue for them defensively.
Okay.
Jalen Milroe is in Peyton Thorne, obviously different caliber of players, but last year Peyton Thorne had like 7.7 yards a carry, something crazy.
Yeah, he busted a 60-yarder on them.
Yeah, I mean, like I put on a clinic. And so if I'm Auburn and I'm Hugh Freeze, I would test that, and I would test that with some sauce. I mean, I would do the window dressing. I would do the misdirection. I'm not an offensive coordinator, and there's a reason why I'm sitting here on the other side of the screen, so I just want to make sure that's clear. But I would test that and see what there is there and make Georgia prove that they actually have fixed those issues on the perimeter run game.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how they probe this Georgia defense early. Like you said, they were able to slow down that Alabama attack there in the second half. But if you're Auburn and you can get out to a quick start somehow on the road and make them play a little bit of catch up, maybe that's how you keep this one close going into the fourth quarter. JD Pickell from On3 Sports, I want to thank you for joining me today. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Man, well, one, always a pleasure. Two, if you just type in the hard count with JD Pickell, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your content, you'll find my mug on there and you can consume our content that way.
Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express podcast, powered by the War Report with my guy, JD Pickell. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform, TW Report on TikTok. Signing off, and as always, War Eagle.